Hey AP Psych students, welcome to the 2019 school year. I am Megan Ravello, streaming with you today outside of my cabin. I'm actually right now in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan on vacation with my family. We haven't started the school year yet, so let me know if for some reason you can't hear me okay, because I am sitting outside of our cabin and there's like a road going by. I've got my citronella candle lit so that hopefully I don't get eaten alive by mosquitoes while I'm sitting here as well. But we're just going to start today talking about AP Psychology. And so if you're a new AP Psych student this year, and if you have any questions for me, feel free to put them in the chat, or there's the Ask a Question tab there at the bottom. Anytime in the chat, this is a stream for you. So if you have any sort of questions you want to ask me, ask away. And again, if you for some reason are having trouble hearing me, I'm sitting outside of my cabin here on vacation, so let me know and I will quick find a better spot for broadcasting. So yeah, so first and foremost, if you're here, you know about Fiveable, and you should be following us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. There's so many great resources for you out there. We want to help you not just with AP Psychology, but with all of your AP classes. There's something there for everyone. So make sure you follow us and talk to us on our social media. All right, and so upcoming streams for AP Psych, we have a couple skills streams because there are going to be some important things that you need to know for AP Psychology, and one of them is how to read your textbook and to take notes. So that will be on the 27th, which I believe is next Tuesday. And then on the 29th, we'll have another skills stream. A former student is going to talk about how they studied and managed their time in this AP class in particular. And then we are going to start out the official school year after Labor Day with our first kind of content-related stream, and that will cover the first unit and approaches to psychology. So for this year, our goal is to have quite a few streams. There will be content streams every Monday night, and those will be at 8 p.m. Eastern. And so those will typically be teacher-led streams. And then throughout the week, we're going to also offer some skill-based streams. We'll practice FRQs, answering multiple choice questions, a lot of other stuff. And those will be kind of scattered throughout the week. And those might be led by teachers. Those might be led by former students. It really just depends on what the stream is and what we're covering. So you're going to have a lot of great resources for you this year. And so before we move on, I have two poll questions that I put, if you look at the bottom of your page. Looks like a lot of you have answered before. Is this your first AP course? Most of you are telling me no. And has your school year began already? That's a little bit more begun. I'm not sure. Most of you are saying, well, no, yes, half and half there. So like I said, my students don't start until after Labor Day, so I'm still on summer mode for about 2 more weeks here. So tonight in our live stream, just to give you a preview of what we're going over, we're going to do just an intro to AP Psychology, like what it is and what you're going to be learning this year. A course overview, that'll just go over the units and how the course is made up. We'll talk just a little bit about AP in general, but since most of you have already taken AP classes, you'll be old pros at that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the exam setup. Again, anytime tonight that you have a question, you can put it in the chat, or you can use the Ask a Question tab. Either or, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So, according to the College Board, AP Psychology, the AP Psychology course introduces students to the systematic and scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. So really, we're going to study why we act the way we do and why we think the way we do, to put it in simpler terms. We're going to study the psychologists who have helped us learn about these things, and we're going to apply those theories, concepts, and phenomena in regards to behavior, sensation, perception, learning, cognition, all of these things. And then throughout the course, we're going to really focus on research methods. So there's a heavy kind of research component to this class. And we'll also talk a little bit about ethics, the scientific method, things like that. And so what's really great if you're taking AP Psychology right now is that you're going to get a lot more content in your AP Psych class than you would in an Intro to Psych class in college. We just have mostly more time with you than your college professors do, and the scope of the course is just broader. So really, you're at an advantage here. If you're taking AP Psychology, you are going to get a lot more than you would in an typically in an Intro to Psych class. And so I think that's really beneficial for everyone who's taking this class. And so this is what the first semester looks like. Your teacher might teach it differently. So in like a history class, right, you typically go in order, chronologically speaking. However, in AP Psych, you don't necessarily have to go in order. Some of the concepts build on each other, but really you could pick most units to start the year with and you'd be fine. So this is the order that College Board puts the units in. And this is the order that I teach them in. And so this is the order that we will be going in this school year as well. So first semester, we're going to start with scientific foundations. And then the percentages that you see there, that's a breakdown of like how much of this unit is going to be on the AP exam. And so some units are heavier and some units are lighter. And so this first unit, scientific foundations, is 10 to 14% of the AP exam. So what that means is there's 100 multiple choice questions, and of those 100 multiple choice questions, 10 to 14 of them will be about the scientific foundations. It's helpful, you know, if you're really cramped for studying sometime, you might not pay as much attention to some of the lighter units. They're still important, but this kind of lets you know how to like focus your time studying. So the Scientific Foundations unit is really just an introduction to the historical figures of psychology. So we go back in time and talk about like the who, the why, how we kind of came up with this whole study and things like that. And then we talk about some approaches and perspectives of psychology, meaning different ways that you can think about it. Some psychologists have a biological perspective, meaning they really study the physical things that are happening within the body, and some people take a cognitive perspective, and they're more concerned with your thought processes and the thinking that happens. And then within this same unit, we're also going to talk about like statistics, experiments, all kinds of the scientific method, things like that. The second unit is biological. This is sometimes it depends if you've taken bio or not. If you've taken bio, it might be an easier unit for you. If you haven't taken bio, might be a little bit harder of a unit. In the chat right now, can you guys tell me what grade you guys are in? That kind of helps to tell whether or not we've had bio or not. Skylar's in 11th, 12th. That's pretty typical, I would say. And what year have you guys taken bio then? I think yes. Is that a sophomore class? I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah. So the bio unit, we study like how neurons fire, and we study how the brain works and what the different parts of the brain do. And then we also study like consciousness, like how our sleep works and dreams and how drugs impact us and things like that. So it's all about kind of these internal kind of physical processes that are happening in our bodies. Okay, and then the next unit, sensation and perception, is 6 to 8%. This is, you'll learn all about the eye, the parts of the eye, how the eye works, how we see color, all of those different things. And then the same thing with hearing. You'll learn the parts of the ear, how hearing works, and all those different parts function together. And you'll learn a little bit about the other senses as well. And it kind of talks about just then how all of these senses, when we put them all together, impact how we interact with and see the world, right? My vision, my hearing, all of that put together is interpreted by my brain, and then that is impacted like how I interact with the world. Then we go on to the learning unit. These are where some kind of classical experiments come out of. We'll see some classical conditioning with Pavlov and the salivating dog. We'll learn about operant conditioning. This is where you can like train your siblings to do something that you want them to do with some reinforcement. And then we'll also learn about how important observational learning is, how your siblings, you know, maybe look up to you and watch you and learn behaviors from you. So pretty important unit. And then the last unit that rounds out semester 1 is a pretty big unit. It's 13 to 17% of the exam. So we want to make sure that you have good content knowledge there. And it's all about how we think, how we problem solve, the different kind of mental shortcuts that our brain goes through and things like that. It also focuses on language development and how, as children, we start to interact with the world using words and using language and how that informs us of things. And then we talk also in this unit about intelligence testing, so IQ tests and things like that, and how do we define intelligence? What does it mean to say that someone is intelligent or has a high IQ or things like that? So pretty big unit, pretty important. After that, we'll do a little bit of review, which will be in kind of late December. And then once we start the new year, we'll start in on second semester. Second semester is my favorite semester. I really like the units a lot in second semester. And so second semester starts with developmental psychology. So you learn all about, this is kind of like the little kid unit. I really like it. We talk about how little kids develop their thought processes and their cognition and their social skills and their moral skills and even a little bit of physical development. And so we really start all the way, actually, you'll learn about embryos, fetus, things like that, all the way up through like death and dying. So it really spans the whole lifespan for developmental psych. It's a really interesting unit. Then we have another pretty big unit, motivation, emotion, and personality. And so there's various theories of motivation in psychology that say that, like, well, we're motivated by sex or by hunger or by thirst or things like that, and how those motivations impact who we are and what we do. And then similarly, there's theories of emotion that explain why I experience sadness or anger or happiness. And so there's this unit maybe is a little bit trickier just because there's a lot of theories in it. And then we talk about Freud's theory of personality, why like I consistently, act a certain way over time. That's my personality. And then there's also some other theories of personality, things like with extroversion and introversion and things like that. Then we have the clinical psych unit. This is the one that I think most people think of when they're like, oh, I'm studying psychology, because we're going to learn about depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, compulsive disorder, all kinds of different disorders in the field of psychology. And so we'll just kind of do a broad overview there of all of those disorders. And then we also look at ways. There's a lot of different therapies. It's not just here, take a pill. There's approaches to how we treat people in psychology. And so you're going to learn a little bit about each of those. And then social psych is my absolute unit. And we'll end that. And social, kind of how you interact with your peers. And I really like this unit because I think it's really applicable. Let's take this class and they do that unit. There's so much more sense now why my friend acts the way they do. Like, it just really explains relationships, conformity, and a lot of things that I think you guys, especially as teenagers, sometimes struggle with. Like, there's some really good stuff in there, and you'll talk about biases as well. We'll talk about prejudice and racism and things like that, and how those are concepts and how we can battle those things. And we also talk about attraction, like why people like you, things like that. So it's a really good unit. It has relevant information for you. So that's really the whole year. Right now I have the year kind of mapped out that for each of these units, 3 weeks on each one. So overall, we'll talk about a big idea from each unit. And so kind of how we'll spend our time. And then again, like I said, there'll be other like FRQ practice, multiple choice practice, things like that year as well. So lots of opportunities for you guys. Okay, so that's the course overview. Since most of you have cases before, why don't you tell me in the chat what classes you've taken? Because I'm actually interested. At my school, usually AP first class that kids take. And so it's interesting that most of you have, this is not your first AP class, all of that. And so I'm just trying to see here. Yep, Euro, Human Geo, World. Ooh, AP Art History. That's interesting. Gov Stats. Wow, interesting, because like I said, at my school, like tends to be the first AP class that students take, and they usually are junior year. So, as then advantages of taking an AP college credit, which in turn saves you time and money later on. The one thing I really like too about this is that your ultimate goal at the end of this, I would the AP test in May, right? Like this. But even if you don't pass, the knock on wood, like none of us, we're all going to pass, right? We're all going to do a good job. But even if for some reason you didn't pass the AP exam, I've had a couple, every year I have, a few students who don't pass, and they'll come back from college and say, I was bummed I didn't pass the AP test, but then I took Intro to Psychology and I got an A on it, and I didn't even have to try that hard. So I think you're still getting a foundation in psychology, and I think that's really important. So this could, make college classes easier for you. Like I mentioned before, you learn more in these intro class, in this AP Psych class, than you do in an Intro to Psych class in college. This can also really help you figure out interests. Maybe you're not sure if you want to focus on psychology in college, and then you take this class and you learn a lot, and you decide that that's somewhere you want to pursue your interests. It saves you some time and some money. And then lastly, the big deal here with AP classes is you're learning skills that you're going to need in college before the stress of college. So when I was in high school, my school, I went to a tiny high school. I graduated with 60 kids, so teeny high school. We did not have AP classes. And so I went into college not having as great of note-taking skills, as great of study skills and things like that. And so that kind of hurt me my first year. I had a hard time my first year just because I was trying to catch up and learn those things. So I think those of you that are taking some AP classes now, you're getting an advantage because you're going into college then with a lot of the skills that you're already going to need. And so that's really, really beneficial. So kudos to all of you for doing this, because that shows a lot of effort and a lot of maturity on your part. So registering for the exam, even though you've all taken AP classes before, sorry, there's a noisy truck driving by. Even though all of you have taken AP classes before, registration is going to be a little bit different this year. It's going to occur in October or November. It kind of depends on your school and the information that they're giving you. Your teacher is going to have info on how to sign up, but it is going to be different this year. There is a fee to take AP exams. It varies by school district. Some schools pay for exams completely, which is awesome and really nice, and I would take as many AP classes then as I could. And other schools don't, and you might have to pay for it. But if you do qualify for free or reduced lunch or things like that, please make sure that you take advantage of that, because those fees can be waived. So don't let the price keep you from earning college credit and taking the AP test. So you can talk to your school's coordinator or your AP teacher. They'll have more information on that. Okay, Peter's mentioning that classmates got registered for the AP exam automatically. Yeah, I think I saw something about that there's this new feature called AP Classroom, that if your teacher puts you into it, and if the setting isn't changed, you might get automatically signed up to take the exam, but they can unsign you up. So it's a new process this year. There might be some speed bumps as we go, and so just kind of make sure to check in with your teacher. And once we have, I haven't started school yet, so I haven't talked to my coordinator, and so I don't know what our process is going to be yet. Oh yeah, and Skylar's right. Some schools might make you take the AP exam. You have to take it if you're enrolled. So again, it kind of depends case by case, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as registration gets closer, just as a reminder. All right, so oops, that grade does not show up very good. The exam format is as follows. There's two parts to the AP Psych exam. There's the multiple choice section, which is what we talked about earlier when I showed you those percentages. If scientific approaches or scientific foundations is 10 to 14% of the exam. That means 10 to 14 of the 100 multiple choice questions are about that unit. So you have 70 minutes and 100 questions, which sounds kind of scary. I think at first you're like, oh gosh, but it really, if you're taking kind of tests all year, I think you'll get kind of the pacing down. It comes out to like 41 seconds a question. I think I did the math once, which again, maybe you don't feel like that's enough, but some of the questions are like a sentence, pretty straightforward. You can answer it really quickly and move on. The FRQ section then, it's like, you know, when you take the ACT, it's like a different section. So there's like a short stoppage of time in between, and then you start the next section. FRQ stands for free response question, and there's 2 of them. And those are more, they're like short answer style questions. And each question is going to give you 7 vocab terms on it that you have to use in your answer. And so I'm going to show you an example of each of these as we go on the next slides. So for the multiple choice, they have 3 different skill categories. This is new this year. So in previous years, it was just kind of like, oh, there's 100 multiple choice questions. They can come from different units. This year, they're also telling us that there's going to be skills that we're focusing on. And the first skill is just general concept understanding. And that's what 75 to 80% of the multiple choice questions will focus on. So an example, I just put a practice question out here. I actually think I have the wrong researcher listed now that I'm reading that question. I copied 2 questions together. John, if you're in there, is that the right researcher with what I'm talking about? Bandura is Bobo Doll. That's Watson. I need to fix that. Yep, it's Watson. I already know I made a mistake. I'm going to edit it right now. Even if you haven't taken psych already, I don't want you to read this and get wrong info. Here we go. See, this is what happens when you're still in summer brain mode. You don't think things through correctly when you are doing this. There we go. My bad. All right. Watson is best known for his research involving pairing a white rat with a scary sound. So basically, they're just describing a concept, and then you have to talk about what it is. So it's just going to be kind of more vocab based. If you understand what the vocab is, you should be able to answer the question. The second category is going to be data-based. So you'll have maybe 8 to 12 questions that involve statistics or analysis of like a chart or a graph. There might be like an image that you have to look at and then interpret the data from there. But a simple version of that might just be, what is the mode? In the beginning unit, we will talk about just kind of mean, median, mode, some basic kind of statistical things. And so that might be a question that you get. And so you look at the set of numbers there and you identify the mode. In this case, it is 17 because there's 3 of those. And then the third skills category involves scientific investigation, which could be like a question about the setup of an experiment or what's an independent variable or something along those lines. And there's overlap here, right? Some of these are concepts and scientific. It's up to the kind of the College Board how they're going to label them. But this question says, one advantage of a survey over other research methods is, and then you have to kind of analyze why we might want to use a survey in one circumstance but not others. So those are the different categories. Mostly, this is a pretty, I would say, heavily vocab-focused class. So one thing I think you want to spend a lot of time on is making sure that you understand the vocab, because that's where a lot of this concept understanding from skill category 1 is going to come from. And you can see that that's like a bulk of what the questions are going to be based around as well. So really do a good job with your vocab. And like I said, next week, if you're not sure about that, one of our student streamers is going to talk about different note-taking and vocab approaches. And so that might be helpful for you. Okay. And so free response question, I'm not going to get into how to answer it today. We're going to have a stream in a couple of weeks where we're going to break down step by step how to answer an FRQ. Today, I'm just showing you what it looks like. So you've answered all of your multiple choice questions. They now give you your little booklet and you're getting 2 free response questions. You're going to have 50 minutes total, and you respond to it. And usually it's like a prompt like this. So there's going to be some sort of a short prompt. Sometimes it's a paragraph, sometimes it's even shorter. It's just a sentence or two. And then it's going to ask you to explain how each of the following concepts relates to the scenario. So the first free response question is always going to be concept application. So they're going to give you a scenario. This one is about someone taking their child to the doctor, the kid's afraid of the doctor, yada, yada, yada. And then now you have to tell me how these vocab words might relate to that scenario. And so again, I'm not going to go through today how to answer a free response question, because I don't think most of us haven't started with enough content yet to actually start answering some of these. We'll do that in a couple weeks, but just as kind of letting you know, this is where we're headed. This is what's on the AP exam. So that's all, just apply the concept. The second FRQ then is going to be about research. So remember I said there's kind of a heavy focus on research. And so one whole FRQ is going to be devoted to either like an experiment or a study, something like that. And typically on this, you might be asked to draw a graph, you might be asked to interpret a graph or a chart or data or things like that. Sometimes they even ask you to design your own experiment based on certain criteria given. Those are sometimes pretty tricky. And so here they give you, excuse me, your scenario again. Researcher Ravello is investigating a new medication to see how it treats OCD. And then for each part, you have to do some application here. Explain obsession, explain how a placebo might be used in an experiment, but all of it, again, is related to research, designing an experiment, understanding how all the parts of an experiment work together and make it sound and ethical and successful and things like that. And then you'll see Part D here says, draw and correctly label a bar graph that depicts Ravello's research findings, and then it tells you in general what those are. So really here you might be asked to draw, you might be asked to interpret. There's a lot of like more skill-based things that might go into this question, and we will work on those quite a bit throughout the school year. So again, I know right now it might seem like, oh gosh, because you haven't really done a lot of content yet. And so this is just a broad overview. And then lastly, just some resources. If you have any questions still, no one's really asked anything in the Ask a Question tab. I'm just double checking. Nope. Feel free to put them in the chat yet. Otherwise, on Fiveable, on the website, you can get my email address and information there, or just make sure you attend another weekly session and we can chat on there. But Fiveable is going to be a really good resource for you. We've got teachers and student interns and all kinds of people who are just interested in psychology. It can be really, really beneficial for you. Plus, it's free, so why not, stop in and chat with us for a little bit. The AP Classroom, this is going to be something your teacher can help you with, but it's a new resource this year. There's practice multiple choice questions and lots of different resources there for you to use. There's a lot of really good Quizlets out there, which are vocab based. If you Google your textbook, if you go into Quizlet and type in your textbook name, there is a teacher group who has made Quizlets for almost all of the textbooks. Those are good study tools. I would caution you though and say, I would never just use someone else's Quizlet. I tell my students you can look at other people's Quizlets and study from them, but I still require them to turn in their own vocab, do their own connections and things like that, because it's super important for how you process and learn the information that you do it yourself. But those are resources that are there for you. The College Board has released a lot of FRQs from years past that are just public information for you. And so you can always look at those as well. I'm sure your teacher has old ones too. But looking at old FRQs is a good way to study. And then lastly, use your peers, make friends in your AP classes, study with them. Sometimes they might understand a concept a little bit differently and explain it in a different way, and it just might click that light bulb on for you. But you have lots of resources available to you. Crash Course is another one. I'm sure you've seen those videos with John Green. I think his brother is the one that does the AP Psych ones. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're good too. There's so many resources out there. So hopefully We will see you guys next week for our 2 skill-based streams. We'll be going over some just basic note-taking and vocab and study skills, things to kind of help you, not probably just in AP Psych, but in a lot of your other classes as well. So if nobody has any questions, otherwise I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys all for being here tonight. And I will see you guys next time I stream, which is probably in a couple weeks here. Yeah, thanks for your time, and we'll see you later. Have a great night.